Hi, I'm Jake from Victoria and we're at Dalby Forest today to do a course preview of the British Gravel Champs and also to test the terrain to see which tyre would be most suitable for the racing conditions.
So guys, we're heading out on a recce of the British Gravel Champs race route today. Here in Dalby Forest in the North Yorkshire National Park. It's a really undulating course, hope you'll appreciate that, and it's often this sort of width, which is nice. So this is fundamentally different course to the previous two venues we've used for the British Gravel Champs. So in Suffolk it was pan flat, and a lot of sharp turns, so it was quite, and the surface was a mixture of hard pack like this, sand in places in the middle of the forest, and Land Rover tracks with a grassy surface. The finishing straight was in a field, so that was just pure grass, but fundamentally pan flat. Scotland was on the Gralloch course, so loose chippings. I mean, how would you describe those chippings compared with this, Lewis?
Yeah, pretty brutal. They're big, chunky, sharp stones, really loose turns, speed limits on descents as much as you would like to go fast, but this is fast, pretty smooth. Yeah, it's a bit bumpy, but there's no big stones anywhere.
I think that's the big difference, isn't it? No big stones,
no
more
big
of
stones,
a firm surface that's probably more predictable.
More predictable, yeah.
We certainly saw a lot of tyre casualties at the Raiders Gravel and Gralloch last year on that course because of the surface being so rocky in places.
Yes.
A lot of people were cutting their tyre casings. I would argue that course it's fundamental to get your tyre casing and your tyre pressures right, and absolutely the airliner definitely helps in that setting as well.
I mean, I'm almost tempted to think that one of the light tyres will be suitable for this on a dry day. What do you think?
I think so, yeah. I think as long as you manage your tyre pressures correctly, you certainly wouldn't be able to run the same lower pressures on the lighter casing as you could on a reinforced casing. So there's always that trade-off. Personally, I would argue though that we are definitely seeing a move across the board in gravel where the tyres are getting wider, the rims are getting wider, the tyre pressures are dropping. And similar to what we see in cross-country racing, people don't really mind carrying an extra 50 grams or so of weight if they're going to have a more robust tyre to get them through a race situation. I mean, people always ask us, what's the fastest tyre? And my answer normally is the one that doesn't puncture.
Yeah.
Not the one that's the lightest.
It is a bit rougher here.
It is very rough, yeah. See, this is exactly the type of terrain with those rougher sections there where the airliners that all three of us are riding definitely become something that's worth having, because the speeds that you'll be carrying in a race situation is so much quicker than what we're doing now, of course. So you are going to hit those obstacles at a much faster pace, and that's when you pinch cut your tyre casing.
You also have the being behind somebody.
Exactly.
From experience, you can't see anything coming. No. You've got a split second to react to a stone or a hole.
And certainly on this stretch, because it's very close to the beginning, people will be fighting for position still. You won't see these until you're in them.
No, exactly.
No. It'll be so fast too. I mean, we're rolling along easily, going pretty fast. So when you're in a race situation, this could be 30 miles an hour, 50k an hour along here.
So we're a couple of k in now. So we've had a very fast start. I think that descent is going to be from the right-hand turn. That's going to be long and fast, and as we were saying, there can be features on the road there that will require lots of tyre maintenance and taking a lot of care, despite not being able to see because there'll no doubt be a lot of dust kicking up. You're taking a left-hand turn there at the bottom and come up this climb now for about 600-700 metres on a surface that seems to be hard packed, but but it was breaking in places. I mean from a tyre perspective, what do you think
It's
we
definitely
need to be looking for here?
I mean, this is exactly what we would kind of call like a mixed condition, you know, where you've got a really hard base compound, but these pine needles are actually really slippy. So definitely I found around some of those sharper corners, when you're coming in at speed, you absolutely need a defined side knob to be able to catch that and just not roll away from that. And I definitely think that's going to be critical in the race. Lewis, what tyres would you run for this course?
At the minute, I'd be looking at Terreno dry on the front, and then potentially, depending on how dry it was, Terreno Zero maybe on the back,
Yeah, nice.
if I felt confident enough for it.
See, for me, I think that the T50 is perfect for the type of riding that I do, and I quite like the fact that it's going to be a nice fast riding tyre, but if it does get wet that day, I reckon I'll just have a little bit more grip than what you'll have on the dry or the Zero.
Or even a bit looser, because it's so dry.
Sure.
You're going to have a bit more grip.
Exactly. For 2025, Vittorious decided to introduce what we call the terrain score, where all of our cut tyres will be renamed in what we call a T-score from T0 to T100. So if you imagine 0 being very fast, smooth tarmac and 100 being the muddiest conditions you can possibly think about, the naming of the tyres will make it clear what the intended usage for every model. So the first tyre that was introduced with this new naming score was the Terreno T50 that was launched in 2024. And that is right in the middle of this terrain score. And all of the current tyres will be renamed with this new score, which will hopefully make it easier for you guys to figure out which tyre is best for the intended usage and the intended track you're riding on. So for instance, Terreno Zero will become Terreno T10, Terreno Dry becomes Terreno T30, 50 is new, the Mezcal will turn into Terreno T70, Terreno Mix will become Terreno T80, and finally Terreno Wet is being renamed as Terreno T90. I think at this point in the race, the bunch will be so tight together still, it's going to be so hard to see those obstacles until you're right on top of them.
So the airliners are going to be a crucial part of the kit for survival, I'd say.
I think so. To optimise your racing performance off-road, and especially on your gravel bike, we would absolutely recommend to consider Vittorious Airliner Light Gravel tyre inserts. And what these will allow you to do is to run a much lower tyre pressure to optimise your grip, your comfort and your braking performance without worrying about damaging your rims and, more importantly, worrying about cutting the tyre casings. So when you look at the cut through, it makes it very clear the amount of run flat protection and sidewall protection you will get from the Airliner Light Gravel. And it only weighs 45 grams. So it's an absolute no-brainer to put one of these inside your tyres front and rear to give you that comfort, grip and support you need to be able to complete the race.
I mean, this event has been designed to be laps rather than the huge single loop that we do for the Gralloch, for example. Because we want it to be more spectator friendly, we want it to be, we want to be able to offer a zone where team support can be provided. That's going to be by the event village. So it will play out fundamentally differently to the way the Gralloch does. So I mean, what are your thoughts about those differences then, Lewis, and how they would impact from a racing at the sharp end point of view?
Yeah, I mean it totally changes the race. As far as the Gralloch, which is basically you have to be self-supported the whole way. You have obviously tech boxes and feed stations, but you're having to stop at the feed stations if you want anything. So you're with the lead group, you stop, you might not get back in. Whereas if you can come round the lap later, pick up a bottle, pick up a gel, whatever, that's always going to be better. Obviously mechanicals are mechanicals, there's not much you can do with that. But then also from the side of if you did have a mechanical that was game over, you've not got like miles of walking. You have a couple of miles of walking, which would probably be okay, it'd be nice enough.
Well, it would be nice enough because we are in a beautiful,
we're in a nice area, yeah.
Beautiful situation here.
Yeah.
A little bit overcast today, but yeah, I mean this area is absolutely an area of astonishing natural beauty, fundamentally different to Galloway. This has got a feels more compact, a bit more rolling, as opposed to the expansive wilderness that we have up there that does feel like you're in the middle of nowhere.
It's nice because it kind of showcases the different elements that you get in gravel racing and how completely different one course can be to another. And something like this is probably definitely better, like you say, from a spectator perspective, where that is more of that adventurous in the middle of nowhere, self-sufficient race. You know?
I think it'll be a very, very different kind of race, but not in a bad way, and it's just different.
Just different, yeah. Exactly, yes, yeah, and that's very much what we're hoping for. Okay guys, so we've ridden around the race route for the British Gravel Championships. It's taken us a little while. We've been stopping and considering and reflecting and analysing. So what, Lewis, from an elite rider point of view, are your thoughts about the route?
Good fast course, going to be a racing course. It's not going to end up being a time trial by yourself or anything. Good mix for everybody. It won't suit one individual type of rider. Yeah, so I think it'll be good.
Great, because it's great to hear that comes across as a more of a road race type event off-road, which is what we're aspiring to do. Would you say that the terrain does lend itself to that then?
I would say with the condition of the roads and whatever, it's going to be more road racy because it's a lot less technical under the wheels the whole time, as opposed to other courses that you're getting rattled the whole time. So yeah, no, I think good bunch racing because you can confidently sit behind people.
Fantastic, which is what we have, that's been our ethos in terms of the gravel races that we've been trying to put on. So that's really great to hear. But then also from a technical point of view, we've got a lot of corners in this that we're approaching at speed, which means tyre selection is going to be absolutely critical to success or just finishing. Do you want to just share some thoughts having experienced those corners now?
There's definitely, like Lewis is saying, it's not as technical as Gralloch, so there's definitely not going to be as many issues in terms of pinch flats as you would get on the Gralloch course. But definitely I will say that tyre choice is critical in terms of getting something with a nice defined side knob. That's the one thing I would definitely stress. Those 90-degree turns we took, a lot of them are quite loose where they're kind of like pine needles on the ground, and there were definitely a few corners that could get quite slippy if we do get a bit of moisture on that track. So you definitely want something that's going to roll quick but has a nice defined side knob just to catch you around those 90-degree turns.
Fantastic, but the rolling quick also therefore means that you don't need knobbles in the middle of the tyre for the majority of the straight, relentless.
Exactly. For me, definitely not having the same bike skills as what Lewis has, I definitely felt really comfortable on the Torino T50, and I would definitely feel that a lot of maybe first-time gravel riders or somebody just here for their own enjoyment might find that a really predictable tyre. Whereas I think Lewis would probably agree that he'd be leaning more towards the faster rolling Torino Dry / Torino T30.
Yeah, exactly.
And maybe even, like you said, a Torino Zero on the.
But then, as you said about the turns, they're all flat. None of them are banking you in. There's nothing to catch you. You are relying on the tyre and your body position to get you around the turns.
So just a couple of other features, I think, having ridden around it again in dry conditions. There's the early stages of the race are littered with descents and climbs, each of which probably a couple of kilometres long, something like that. How would you think that riders should be approaching, in the first instance, those descents if they're riding in a bunch, Lewis?
Probably, if you haven't rode the course, you're going to need to be cautious. I mean, everything's fairly straight here. It's fairly straight into then a 90-degree turn, and then straight into a 90-degree turn. There's nothing really turns-wise like the Gralloch where you have twisty descents, but the 90-degree turns can come out of nowhere. If you weren't paying attention and you were stuck just concentrating on the person in front of you.
So I suppose that's a crucial thing then, isn't it? Is making sure you look ahead and not just focused on that wheel in front, because bends can come up. Was one of those early descents that we went down, and there is a sharp right on it that will catch you out if you were not looking ahead. Exactly. You just focus on the rider in front. And then of course with every descent we've got to climb, and certainly, I mean, I struggled on the initial element of the climb, which tended to be quite steep, and then it was flattening out. I mean, what was your view of the impact of the climbs and how people might approach those on this route?
So there was three kind of climbs, and the first one was steeper and then slackened off, and then the middle one was quite consistent, and then the last one was fairly consistent and then got a little bit steeper to the end. So I would say, again, given the length of the race and how hard it'll be conservatively, because there are four climbs a lap roughly, so it's just going to get hard and relentless and wear you down eventually.
Yes, it's going to be a war of attrition out there, isn't it? Yeah, so it's unlikely we're going to see groups getting away through attacking early doors. It's going to be a steady erosion of the peloton.
Yeah, I would have said so.
Very good, very good. And then finally, then any other technical thoughts about setup, tyre pressure, and airliners, of course.
Exactly. So Lewis made a really good point while we were riding around. He said because it's not as rocky as Gralloch, you could actually run much lower tyre pressure than you would normally run. And I definitely feel that's beneficial to give you that grip around the corners. I would definitely urge people to come and speak to us over the weekend to try and discuss the tyre pressure. I think the worst thing you can do here is ride a really high tyre pressure because you're going to lose so much traction. Yeah. So definitely that airliner will help you, because there are a few bits where you can get into a choppy situation, and if you were running the tyre pressure too low, of course you run the risk of damaging your tyre and your wheel. So the airliners absolutely help with that. But that was interesting today, for you to say, and you're already running pretty low tyre pressure already, that you could go even lower because it's that type of track that's for the most part quite smooth.